Hey Patreon, it's Curtis with Olympus Reptiles. And as you guys know, Matt had some family stuff come up this week and had to be out of town. So, he left it up to me to do some videos this week. Right here, we have Axel, which is my boxer. And over here, we have my black cat, Midnight. I don't know how well you can see it, but it's pretty late at night. This is when I do, most of my editing after the family goes to bed. I usually stay up, 2 or 3 hours a night editing and putting videos together. So Monday, Matt and I had scheduled to get together, put some videos together and get a lot of filming stuff out of the way. And that's when he called me and said, hey, I had this going on and wanted to know if there's any way that I could handle, putting videos together this week. And we talked a little bit. We decided, the best thing to do would probably do, like, I've been wanting to do a rat video about pet rats, rats as pets. Because we've got, a lot of people ask us, do I keep rats as pets? And I do, because the only thing I've really showed is the rats we have at the breeding facility in Manhattan Reptile World. So, we came to my house and filmed and, showed the rats here. And then after doing all that, I realized, hey, I have to do a Patreon video. And, I took a couple of days to kind of figure out, what I wanted to do. And I thought, this would be a great opportunity for you guys just to get to know a little bit more about me. So that's what this video is about. Just getting to know the other person behind the camera. Camera guy Curt, as Matt likes to call me. So I guess first to start out is I'm 36 years old, and as of today, it's Matt's birthday, and he just turned 38. But growing up, I was always into hunting and fishing with my dad. My family owns an archery shop here in town. So I kind of, did a lot of that. And I ended up having one of our customers come in, and he's wanted to start up a hunting TV show. And I think the first couple of times he came in, he asked me, hey, would you want to do this? And I told him no, because basically I didn't want to be in front of the camera at all. I was kind of, scared about doing that. But I kind of, talked to him a little bit about it, and we decided, yeah, I'd help him do that. But I would basically just be a cameraman. I'd be behind the camera, filming and editing and stuff like that. That's what I feel most, more comfortable with. So that's how I kind of got started in doing like videoing and editing and all that. There was a couple of hunts where I've actually was in front of the camera. If you guys are interested, I looked it up today and it's still on YouTube. It's under Lost Velvet Outdoors. And I actually did a bear hunt that was filmed, and that was actually up in Canada. And I think it's episode 1, season 1, I think. But I don't know if you guys are interested or not. But that's kind of how I got started. And the person I did that with was Matt. So, Matt with Olympus, and then Matt with, Lost Velvet Outdoors. But we went to a couple of filming schools, and we started, buying camera equipment and, learning about, lighting and audio and, editing and all that. So that's how I kind of got, started doing the filming. And next, I'm going to, how I met Matt. And I always consider Matt as my cousin, but technically he's not my cousin. He married my cousin. And then after, I think they were together for like 9 or 10 years. And then she ended up leaving him. And about the same time, I think a year after that, my wife that I was together with 8 years ended up leaving me. So we were kind of both, around the same time, found ourselves single. And I don't know, I ended up, hanging out with Matt a lot more. I don't really talk to my cousin. I see her at like family events every once in a while, but we never hang out or see each other. I hang out with Matt all the time. But that's how I kind of got to know Matt. And so we both found ourselves single, and then Matt, we both grew up, having reptiles around and animals. I think how most kids do. But I ended up, growing up, I had a iguana, I had a leopard gecko, like bearded dragons, stuff like that. I never really had any snakes, and I think Matt had a boa, growing up. But he kind of started, after his divorce, he got back into reptiles, and I think his first snake after that was our the carpet python that we have, the nice yellow one. And then he started getting into ball pythons and started reading about, breeding them and all the different morphs. And he got, really excited about the axanthic gene and things like that. And I was going over to his house at that time, and I think he had like 4 or 5 snakes. And we would have kind of a guys' night. We'd invite some people over, and one thing was to, feed the snakes. Then after that, we'd usually play poker. And I remember, there was only like 4 or 5 snakes, so it didn't take very long to feed it, and we'd spend the rest of the night, playing poker. And Matt's kind of always, talked about, kind of restarting that up, but just, how busy we are. And now, our feed nights, take, 2 or 3 hours, where before it would take like, 20 minutes. But so it's kind of got started like that. And then Matt, saw that I kind of had an interest of, what he was doing and having, snakes. And he ended up, I think, doing a online auction, and ended up, I think it was through Facebook or something. He ended up winning an auction of this female calico. And he ended up calling me up because once he, won the auction, he contacted the guy that held the auction, and he ended up having like extra snakes that he was wanting to sell too. So Matt called me up, said, "Hey, I know you're kind of interested in maybe, getting some snakes too." And this guy, I think, had 5 available. Well, everything said we ended up buying 5 snakes. I ended up buying 3 of them, and Matt bought 2, and that's how I kind of got started. I kept him at Matt's house because he had this big rack that was basically empty and had, tons of room for him. And I was up there, one night a week anyway, playing poker. So we would just feed all the snakes, and I would, help pay for the bill of buying, frozen rats. And then, with anything, when you first start something, I started doing like a lot more research. And one thing I was researching is, the cost of rats. Matt was buying, I think from Rodent Pro, every month or every couple of weeks, we were buying like a box of rats. At this time, we probably had, over 10 snakes. And I talked to him about, hey, maybe we should look at, breeding rats. And that's just something that he was never really interested in. He just, I don't know, I guess just didn't really wanted to breed rats. And I was like, man, I think we could save a lot of money by doing that and just, breeding our own. And he's like, well, if you want to do that, you're more like, you can go do that. He just didn't want to do that. And I was like, yeah, I think that's what I want to do. So I ended up, doing a lot of research, and I ended up building my first rack, and then I got, bought some other racks and started doing it. And it just, one thing I didn't really anticipate was how much I would just really like breeding rats and, kind of just fall in love with them. I was kind of mainly doing as a business side of just, it was more cost effective to breed rats. And then I found that I really like them. And as you can see from our YouTube video, that I actually keep rats as pets now. And I just think they're a pretty cool, animal to have around. But that's just how it got started. And then, Matt started talking about, doing a YouTube. And I think the first couple of videos, it was just him and Aaron. Like Aaron was holding like just a cell phone filming, and then Matt was in front of the camera. And I already had, the camera equipment from, the hunting TV show I did, and, editing and stuff like that. And I was like, man, I think, I could, do a pretty good job of doing that. He's like, I just don't want to be in front of the camera. If you want to do all that, I'll film it. And so that's how we kind of got started doing that. And then over time, it just kind of grew to where we made a business of it, and we're just both 50-50 partners. And that's just, how everything started. And it's just amazing. I think it was like 4 years ago when we kind of started all this, and just what kind of it built up to. And every time, you kind of start a business, you're kind of like, is it going to be successful? You have all these doubts, and then over time, stuff happens to kind of push those doubts away, and you kind of realize that, hey, this might, actually turn into something, successful. And one of those turning points was when I was breeding rats. And then at that time, I think we had like a couple of clutches of snakes, and we, picked out holdbacks and sold the other ones. And I remember I was breeding rats, and I'd bring them back to Matt's, and we'd feed them. And at one point, we realized, hey, we're feeding rats to snakes that we actually bred. So we're breeding our rats, we're breeding snakes, we grew these snakes up, and we're feeding rats to snakes that we actually produced and made. And that's kind of an aha moment. It's like, man, maybe we could actually do this. And then I remember like another point when we actually started doing like all the YouTube stuff was YouTube does all this analytics where you can see, the amount of views you get, the amount of, time, people actually watch your, like, average time they watch your video. So say you have like a 10-minute video, not everyone watches a full 10 minutes. They usually watch, say like 4 minutes. So you can see, okay, well, we get like, say 1,000 views, and our average is 4 minutes. You can say, so it'd be, 4,000 minutes. And at one point I tried to figure, I was like, man, it'd be kind of cool to figure out how many minutes are in a day. And so we figured that out, and it was actually, we were doing as many minutes as there are in a day. So you could technically say that, in a 24-hour period, somewhere around in the world somewhere, there was someone watching like one of our videos. And that was kind of a point to where, like, both of us were like, man, maybe this YouTube thing could kind of, pay off too, could kind of be successful, to where, somewhere in the world, someone is watching your videos. We have people that watch us from, overseas, like in Australia and Europe, and it's just kind of amazing. But those are just two examples of where Matt and I both, started to kind of realize, hey, this is something that could actually be successful, and kind of, push down the doubts of people saying, oh, you guys, can't do that. And, raising snakes isn't anything that can be successful. But, we start kind of actually realize, hey, this is something that can be. Well, hopefully you guys like this video. If you want me to, be in front of the camera more, just let me know. Or if you want Matt, it really doesn't matter to me. I feel more comfortable behind the camera anyway. But hopefully you guys, know a little bit more about me and about how I got started in all this with Olympus and with Matt. Thanks for watching, and see you guys next week.